Alright, on this video, I'm going to start with problem number 7 from the Chapter 1 test review, and we're going to work through at least problem number 10. So, for these problems on this page, it says use the diagrams to find the given lengths. Well, in number 7, the only thing that they give us is YZ. But remember, if there's not a segment or a line in front of it or an angle symbol in front, that means that you are finding distance. So this actually means find the distance between point Y and point Z. So after you understand what they're asking you for, you should look at the diagram. And in the diagram, I want to go between Y and Z. So here's Y and here's Z. So I want the distance between those two. Well, they don't give me a number, but you do notice that they give us a tick mark. And there's one tick mark. Well, if you look to the left of the diagram, there's one tick mark there. And that tick mark is 18. So remember, one tick mark goes with one tick mark. That means that those are congruent measurements. So if this side is 18, this side must also be 18. So therefore, the distance between point Y and point Z is 18. Now, just as a side note really quick, remember if I'm talking about the segment, which they didn't ask me for, but just so we review, if I'm talking about the segment, I can't say that segment is equal to 18, because remember, segment is a diagram. I could put an M in front to mean measure, so the measurement of segment it's supposed to be YZ, of YZ is 18. So this is the answer, but I just wanted to remind you about proper notation when it's segments or when it's distance between points. All right, so with that being said, let's quickly go to number 8. Remember, number 8 says distance again between L and N. So let's find L, find N. The distance between those would be the whole line. So we're going to use segment addition here. So the distance from here to here is 25, but we should not stop because we need to go all the way to N. So the distance from there to there is 12. So 25 plus 12 is 37. So your answer is the distance between L and N is 37 units, whatever those are there again. This doesn't give us any units, but centimeters, we put centimeters, yards, we put yards. Okay, so those two are done. So let's look at the next two problems. Now the directions are a little bit different on this one. The directions say M is the midpoint. Well, remember, if something's the midpoint, it divides it in half exactly. And then it says find the indicated length. All right, so on number 9, it tells me M is the midpoint, so this is the exact middle. So they did mark it for us, showing us that both sides were congruent, but if they didn't, you were supposed to already know that they would be congruent because M is the midpoint. Now they are asking us to find length XM. Well, the distance between XM. So we're going between X and M. So I want to know that distance. Well, they don't give me a number. They give me a variable expression. Well, the only thing that I can really say that I know that's helpful in this problem is that I don't know what this side is, but it's got to be exactly the same as that side. So whatever the distance between XM is, it's the same as the distance between MZ. Well, what is XM? XM is represented by the expression x plus 2. And that has to be equal to whatever the distance between M and Z is. Well, if you notice, the distance between M and Z is represented by the expression 2x minus 3. So now I have an equation. And remember, a lot of geometry comes all the way back to just your algebra. So how would we solve this equation? Well, first thing we want to do is combine our variables. So I want to combine this x and this 2x. Since I'm going across the equal sign, I've got to change my sign. It was positive, so I'm going to subtract it. So these cancel, leaving me with a positive 2 equals x minus 3. Now I've got to get my constants together. So it's minus over here. I want to move it across the equal sign, so I have to change the sign. So that means that x is going to equal 5. Now, is that my answer? X equal 5. Well, you got to think back to the original problem. What were they asking me? Well, if you look back to the original problem, they were asking you for the distance between x and m. Well, did you just find the distance between x and m? No, you found what x is equal to. So go back to your diagram. Remember, x and m was this distance. Now you know that x and m is the same thing as x plus 2, and we've just found out that x is 5. So substitute in 5 for x, so xm is equal to 7 units. Whatever your units are, that's what xm is equal to. Okay? So don't make the mistake that's so easy to make and stopping once you find x. Always go back and make sure you've answered the question. You had to find x first, but that is not your final answer. All right, looking at number 10. Again, remember they tell us in the directions up here that m is the midpoint. They did mark it for us on the diagram, but if they did not mark it, you would be expected to remember that they are congruent. So this time they want me to find the distance from C to G. So they want the whole thing. Well, I know that the distance between C and M is represented by 4x minus 5, and the distance between M and G is represented by 2x plus 7. But that doesn't really help me so much right now because I don't know what x is. I want numbers. Well, if you remember that M is the midpoint, you know that this side has to be equal to this side. So in order to find x, I can take the 4x minus 5 from here and set it equal to the 2x plus 7 from here, because I don't know what those expressions are right now, but I do know they have to be equal. So this is a true statement. 4x minus 5 must equal 2x plus 7. Now I've set up an equation that I can solve and figure out what x is. So I want to get my variables together, so I'm going to move the 2x to the other side. Since it's going across the equal sign, I have to change my sign. So, 4x minus 2x is equal to, 2x, bring down the minus 5, equals, those cancel, a positive 7. Now I want to get my constants together. Since the 5 has to go to the other side of the equal sign, I switch my sign. So 2x equals 12. And then lastly, this is 2 times x. I want to get x by itself, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So x is equal to 6. But remember, this is not your final answer. Okay? It's not your final answer. Remember, you want to find out what the distance between C and G is. So now let's go back up and look. Well, what is C and G? Well, C to G is this whole thing. It is 4x minus 5 and 2x plus 7. So what is the 4x minus 5 if I plug in 6? 4 times 6 minus 5. We got 24 minus 5, which gives us 19. Now, if we did that algebra right, when I plug in 6 here, it should give me the same thing. So 2 times 6, substituting in 6 for x, plus 7, 12 plus 7, 19. So both sections are 19. So CG is the whole thing, remember. So I'm going to say 19 plus 19, which gives us 38. So the entire length, C to G, is 38. Okay, so that is problem 7, 8, 9, and 10 from your Chapter 1 test review.